Okay, I'll speak condensed, so it'll be over with quickly. Haven't seen Toshi's presentation. I remember, I don't know how old I was. I just learned to write, and I remember, reading and writing, and then I came across something that I didn't understand. It was English or French, and I thought, you can use the same letters for other languages, and I thought that was brilliant. So I could write, all languages, I thought, just with the same alphabet. Aren't we lucky? In the Latin alphabet. Yes, I have described myself as a typomaniac, which I've always defined as incurable but not lethal yet. As you can see, I'm still here. I will be 80 soon. Now I'm getting a little scared if my money will last. I mean, either my money will last and I will die early. Either way. I'm here by the grace of Lemsip, by the way. I had a horrible cold until yesterday, so if I start coming out of this, it's I don't know what's in there. It's probably the worst thing ever, but it works. I mean, I was sick as a dog yesterday, and today I'm as sick as half a dog. The art of looking. I've always used that phrase, to people who are, what the hell is, I mean, you know that. What do you do? Are you a type designer? But, I can just download them. So, I just tell them what is type. Types is legible language. And it's funny when you get a spec by, like corporations, companies, clients, they say, we want our type to be legible. It's like saying food in this restaurant is edible. Duh. I mean, why would I make an illegible typeface? I'm looking at you, Jonathan. I just saw I saw the word disturbance there in your presentation. I suddenly remembered his typeface of the same name, or out of what, 1991 or something, early there. What?
Someone else.
Didn't you do disturbance? Oh, it's Jeremy. Oh, that is embarrassing. Who do I apologize to, him or you? But it was, you know what I'm saying. It was two Brits who did weird shit.
Yes.
Yes, I'm always surprised that people think, if you ask around, Arial is still the most legible typeface. But that's saying, water is the most drinkable liquid. Arial is, we all know, it was invented in this very town here. But if you look at it from a legible point or legibility point of view, it's not the most legible type. It's just that because you're used to it. But, you can be used to anything, and it makes it endurable. I like my I's distinguishable. What happens when you have the narrow letters T, L, I, and even lowercase r, and the F are narrow, so they have not enough white space. So you have letters next to M's and N's, which have white space counters, or black space in this particular case. I like to make those letters a little wider, so you don't get this sort of fence effect. That's why my T's tend to be wider, my F's tend to be wider. I hate the Helvetica double stack 8. I don't hate it. How can you hate a letter? I don't like it very much. I like the little loop. And I love drawing figures. I don't know why that is. Maybe because they're not Roman, Latin, they're Indian. And I always put ones on serifs on ones. God, my brain hurts. And I don't like the Helvetica sort of belly 2. I always make the swan neck thingies, and I don't like closed E's and stuff. So there's my design style in one slide. And this is an old one. I was looking through my stuff recently. There's way more than I could ever quote. And I've always done the capital I with serifs, because otherwise it looks like an L. Has anybody ever fills out passwords on small screens? How do you tell an L from an I from a capital I, lowercase one? So my L's have always had the little kick in the bottom. I tend to put serifs on I's, and now it's become a standard. I mean, everybody has serif capital I's, obviously. But being German, I do like precise numbers and measurements. When I work, which I don't do very much in Glyphs or Font Lab or whatever, I tend to do the 4 digits after the comma or decimal point, the position of points on the curves. You can just move them around and they look okay, but I tend to go and what's that? In the old days, that was necessary because it made the font smaller, and when the font had to be 25K, and 25K was pretty much, well, under 20 or something, what fit on a disc. That was important. But I've always liked to measure stuff, and I found this. I talk about research, by the way, when I always say yes when Sid Bright asks, without even thinking about it. I can go to London, great. I have a fucking cold. Don't want to go to London, but I've got to go because I promised now. So I'm here. I was digging through all the stuff because I'm showing you some stuff that I don't normally ever show. I have a whole folder full of stuff that I've forgotten about because it was done for friends or free. We used to do these markups. I don't know. There's a few people almost as old as me who remember this. I was at Wolf Ordens. It said at the bottom that 1979. I was working for Wolf Ordens. This is for a VW manual. So this is how we spec'd our type. We had grid sheets. This is a 3.25 millimeter. That's the basic line field, we called it, the leading or the line distance for the text face. And you have you have X coordinates and Y coordinates. The X coordinates I would put in by hand in red ink, and the X coordinates, the Y coordinates, the typesetter reads on the left, because you had to identify the bottom left of your first letter. So this was artwork that was set in position, because I never liked cow gum and all that. I mean, makeup stuff I thought was primitive. All my type was set in position by good typesetters, because you only had one go. I mean, there was no data. So if you got it wrong, you had to redo it. And I think even back in the 70s when I worked at Film Comp, not a million miles away from here over in Waterloo, it was like £200 an hour. And 40 years ago, that was like a monthly wage for some people. And I like making stuff. I've always liked making stuff, and I'm sort of back to printing letterpress, as some of you know. My big workshop that I used to work in, where I thought I would die as the man with the most proofing presses, I will now die with the man with the most proofing presses in storage, because I kept only 3 out of the 8 I had there, but I still have a little letterpress shop. But here I like to discuss, because it's the final keynote, as it were. It's not about how we make it, but why do you make it in the first place? I mean, what turns you on? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Some of it is simple. We heard this before, you know. You have to make money, right? Krista, you know, it's something you have to do, even though it's unpleasant, and nobody wants to talk about it, but we have to pay the rent, and they're not getting any cheaper. So I would like to, as the Americans say, share some of my methods, preferences, standards, and gimmicks, because we all have a repertory. I have a certain way of solving certain issues that I know will work. They may not win me Nobel Prizes or get me in the D&AD yearbooks, but they work. And I take on certain projects because, I'll tell you in a minute. But this West Berlin, you know that Berlin was 2 cities at one time until the late 1989, and this was what the signage in the city looked like. And for years, or 10 years, I kept writing letters to the Berlin transport people saying, this totally fucking sucks. And I said it in those many words, but in German. They had one of these signs where the B was missing, that was Irischer Platz, which is very misleading if it's instead of Bavarian, you end up in Ireland. And I look at this, I mean, gravity strikes again, and I showed them those slides, and they threw me out. They said, how do you dare show us this picture? I said, it's your bloody environment. You made this, or you don't make this. But all the management people drove cars. They said, well, why would you use the underground? It's dirty down there, and people piss in the corner. I said, yes, don't you know? So I kept pestering them, and I did some presentations for free like an idiot, just because I couldn't bear this. I used the underground every day, and it was so ugly. So then the wall came down, or we brought the wall down, and suddenly there was the 2 Berlins joined, and not one. It was like, imagine if you couldn't cross the river in London. In South London, don't know whether South London needs to exist, but that's another issue, having lived in Holland Park and all living. But imagine if people didn't know there were some people living down there, you know, in the Kentish Hills and sort of Bromley and places, and Wandsworth, you know, or Elephant and Castle or whatever. I used to go there in the 70s for the London College of Printing. Elephant and Castle underground was, I don't know how I survived. By running quickly, actually, yes. So the city was closed off, so the East Berliners had no idea what the West looked like, and vice versa, because we couldn't travel to each other. And each other's map was white. It was like the Upper Nile during Stanley Livingstone's travels. They hadn't discovered it. So it took me a while, and then the client came to me and they said, you know, we've had our differences in the past, and, you know, we didn't allow you to come back to us, but we're in a bit of a pickle here because, you know, the 2 cities and la-di-la-di, and could you possibly, there was like four conditions in there, eventually, maybe, perhaps help us. And I think I kept my cool, and it was like going like this under the table. So I had hair to push back. I said, I'll think about it. Oh, fuck's sake, I can do this, And I waited 3 days. I think I didn't sleep. And I called him and said, we've considered this. We may actually work for you. So a year later, we had it sorted. It took 4 or 5 years, but we had a system. And basically, the system was that everything is yellow. They had 4 or 5 different colors for all the vehicles from the east and the west, and the trains and the trams and the buses. And I basically said everything is yellow and it has a typeface. And now there is a book that came out end of last year, Berlin is Yellow. It's like London. I don't know if Tim knows the story when the London transport the buses got privatized. And I don't know how many companies run buses, half a dozen or so. And they were going to have their own livery. So there was going to be blue buses and yellow buses and green buses. And the English Tourist Board stepped in and said, wait a minute, what color is a New York cab? Yellow. What color is a London bus? It's fucking red. The blue bus pulls up. Nobody's going to get in. They think they're going to charge you for a tour around Hyde Park or something. So a bus has to be red, and it's still red. You see the signs on the door. They all have fantasy names like Arriva, but they never do. And that's actually German, Arriva or Riva or whatever. It's owned by German Railways, of all people. They know how not to run a bus company. So that was it. Basically, all we did is redesign their type and made everything yellow. And I have Jonathan. I don't know why you're here tonight. It's so fun. And Jason is here also. I did a yellow brand before. That actually has a fantastically intellectual story, because when we were sitting at the time in the late 80s, we called them, they were laser fonts, because they were exposed with laser, whatever, early days. Before digital, we had photo setting. So I thought, it's light on, light off, black and white. But black and white is kind of tedious. So I thought, well, light can also be yellow. So we made it yellow and black. Then I discovered, as you will discover if you ever try this at home, if you have yellow and you put black on it, it's boring. It needs a bit of white, only one spot of white, and then the yellow will shine and the black will shine. Remember this when you go home. Black on yellow is brownish. It ends up as beige. So put a bit of white in there. My method, and this is the art of looking, I like to, like old boys, or these days everybody, taking things apart is the best thing. You take a word, put it in its parts and reassemble them, turn them upside down or whatever. You realize an upside down A could be an E and vice versa. We've all done this. We've all been there. I don't know how often I've seen people doing the famous word question with a question mark instead of the S in there. It works, but I know it's from the 70s, but it works. I like to measure and I like to take things apart and look closely. In this particular case, this is the German, one of the Intercity Express, the fast trains. They were introduced in the early 2000s when, like some other nations, Germany wanted to privatize the railway. Luckily, they didn't, because we know what happens when they privatize the railway, and you have a dozen railways, we still have one. It's not the most functional in the world because they try to privatize it, and for years they stopped investing and trying to sell it off and not invest any more money. But in 2000, I was called in by a friend of mine they hadn't had a design department. They had a design department for the wheels and for the engine stuff, but not for anything else. They had an advertising agency, and they had 4 different colors for trains that went up to 50 kilometers, and then the ones that went to 75, they had another color, and ones that went over 150, another color. And people were supposed to remember, oh, this train only goes 50 kilometers? Yeah, right. So we sat down and we decided, okay, the regional trains are red and have a white stripe, and the long and distance trains are white and have a red stripe. That's essentially the design program for the German railways. And a typeface, because when I'm involved, my clients end up having a typeface, because that's what I do. And so they have a typeface in many weights, and they've been updating it. But essentially, that was the typeface. This is one of the joys, by the way, of designing type that is used in public. I sit there, drink out of a cup with my type on it. Actually, me and Christian Schwartz. I have to give him a lot of credit for this. And nobody knows. It's a sort of Rumpelstiltskin effect, Nobody knows I did this, and I get a really kick out of it. If they knew, it would be boring, but I can it's my own typeface, and I'm drinking out of my own cup. It's I don't know how you can if you can appreciate that, but it's fun. And basically that's the brand, you know. It's a I mean, this is embroidered, and you can still tell the typeface. I mean, how often do I do a crossover W? Hardly ever, because it doesn't usually work. But it works there, and there's the little leg on the L, and the little red line, because essentially this is the corporate design of German Railways. It's white and a bit of red and a typeface. That's it. Doesn't need. Who needs a manual? No, seriously, you don't need a manual. This is it. Have a bit of red in there and use the typeface, and that's it. Don't use blue. Don't use yellow. Just use red, white, and black. So there. And they are optimizing it, because we finished the work in 2005. In 2005, we weren't thinking digital. There wasn't an iPhone yet, which came out in 2007. So they do ask me. They have various agencies updating it. They did recently called it Neo, because now it's made for small screens, which I hadn't considered. It was print only. And it's nice that they come back to me. They don't have to. But I'm sort of going there and play the granddaddy, which is, okay, yeah, that's very nice, boy. Yes, carry on doing that. That's really good. That's a nice serif here. Thank you very much. It's fun. So my one-offs where I can show you some of my tricks. This is I opened this folder. That's my one-offs of the last 75 years by the looks of it. We do a New Year's card every year, which we print letterpress, because we have the presses and the type. And I've always wanted to use this sort of cowboy typeface. And new in German means neu. But if you add another U, you have a W, then it means new. See? That takes about 5 minutes to design. It takes 2 hours to print. And there you are. A friend came and he wanted to open he's a tailor. So the other thing you do, you write down his name, or you write down the word, and you write it in 4 or 5 or 6 typefaces. Then, of course, you realize, oh God, Whitfield has an FI ligature. How cool is that? Who doesn't want an FI ligature in their name? And especially the one from Gill, the third one down, is a lovely one. Futura has a nice one. But he wanted his name in caps, because it has that sort of stature. How do you do an FI ligature in caps? Well, you do. So that's his logo, and that took 2 hours? Of course, my brief to myself is, when friends ask for stuff, I don't want to negotiate money, because they don't really have money. That's why they ask me, and I'm a buddy, and so I say, okay, you don't pay, but I do it in 2 hours, and I do it now. Because if I leave it for 2 days, you know what, it's not going to ever happen, and then they call me, and then they're embarrassed because they have to remind me, and then I'm embarrassed because I forgot. So I said, 2 hours, I do it right now, and that's it. And if you don't like it, go fuck. Don't like it, but whatever. Right? And it's worked. Recently, there's some thing in Massimo Vignelli in New York. This was a couple of years ago. They have a book about him, or anniversary, whatever. And Massimo means maximum in English. Massimo, it's obvious. And he was known for his minimal design. So this is the poster that took about maybe 10 minutes. Massimo designed minimum noise, because his design was quiet. And some guy wrote this sentence that said, "Can I visualize this?" I said, "Yes, wait on the phone," and I sent him the file. That sentence, he gave me that sentence, and okay, it fit on a postcard. Friends have a company called Solutions. What do? They sort of do money dealings, right? So what do they get? They get a dollar sign. And this is another theme, I like taking things out. It works. I mean, this took, you find the typeface, and then you take the bits out. I mean, what is that, 10 minutes? Finding the type takes longer, because once you start looking at type specimens, you get stuck, and you look at all the old the old disturbance. And I saw some of Jonathan's stuff recently, because I looked through all my font folder, and oh my God, the shit we did! It's incredible. Were we thinking in parts of it? But some of it is bound for revival, because not David Carson necessarily. They're still waiting. There will be. We'll have to convert it to a new format. But that's the trick I've often used, is cutting something away. Like I have this is a neuropsychologist, a guy who helped me with my vision. I was getting pretty bad. And so he's called Zabel, Vision Restoration Center, Savia. So what do? Take the vision apart, and he can go back and restore it. So cutting out another 10 minutes. And he liked it, because he understood it. I have a friend who is a business consultant. She has a business design institute. Take the I out. Who needs an I in there, right? So that's another logo that takes, 10 minutes? It has to be Accidenzgrotesque, because she's an old-fashioned classic German consultant. So those things, like I said, under 2 hours, sent to the client immediately, and they get I don't know what they do with it, but I don't fucking care, because they didn't pay. So, she can eat it if she wants to. Another thing that's always nice, messing a word up, in this case, in alphabetical order, all the letters, and they spell people design, because they're the people. I said, can you make us a holidays, a Christmas card? And they're called people design, so this spells people design. I just put the letters in order. Because in the word people, then all the the D comes before the E, obviously. But in people, the P comes first. That's rubbish, right? This is the ABC in its proper design, how it's meant to be. Then somebody wanted a 404 page, the one when it's not found. Well, that's very simple. Who can read binary? That's binary for 404. Okay, I had to look it up, I must admit. I can't spell binary immediately. You can work it out. And then I like this binary. This is, by the way, a Russian typeface, which I found somewhere, back when the Russians weren't quite so bad. And I paid for it in rubles. And then somebody came and wanted a T-shirt. I thought, I know this binary stuff. And then I said, well, that's very nice on a T-shirt. What does it mean? So I had to include the meaning, 2019. You would have known, right? So again, how long does that take? I mean, you write this down, you send a PDF, maybe with the phone calls and everything, maybe half an hour. And my friend Simon is 30, duh. He's rounding. You can hear the noise, can't you? And there's an American company out of Chicago. They do Cards for Humanity. It's a weird card game. I don't know if you play it here. And there are apparently 7 words, 4-letter words in the English language, according to George Carlin, that you're not allowed to print. So work out this one. The first letter is F. The second one is U, so you got it, right? So that's another one I do all the time. You replace letters by numbers or vice versa. And people, if you can't find out this word, you don't deserve to live. I mean, let's face it. Or you're very naive. So that's harmless. It's like we printed a poster called Truck Thump. And it was, oh, you can't say that. What do you mean? You can't say truck? You can't say thump? What's wrong with that? It's in your mind, it's the dirty thinking. It's not on my poster. And this is perfectly harmless. I just put a 3 there instead of a C. So there. And that's, again, 10 minutes. And have you noticed they're all white out of red? Because that's my default. I have this set up, basically. I have red set up on my computer. And this one, even another one of our New Year's cards, my wife didn't get the joke. 2015. 2 lines of type, 0 lines of type, 1 line of type, 5 lines of type. That's what this says. But everybody thought it said 2015. See, it isn't, doesn't. I got to design, there's a company makes wooden watches. I mean, God knows who wants a wooden watch, if they did. So I gave him those types, and they didn't like them. The first one is 5 to 12, which is the watch we all need. The other one is always on time, because there's no figures there. And then 24/7 means day and night, obviously. The other one's lots of time, or you don't have any numbers. They liked these kind of, but they said, well, can you do something with numbers? So I did those, boringly. But a lot of people can't, most Americans can't do the 24-hour stuff unless they're in the military. So I did that one for them. And they actually, they didn't pay, but they sent me 2 watches, which I haven't worn, because who wants to wear a wooden watch? It's like having a wooden leg in a way. I mean, it works, but it's not desirable. And then last year for Easter, the Süddeutsche Zeitung magazine, one of our regional national newspapers, sent a brief to a lot of designers, artists, do your Easter egg. So me being the measuring and defining guy, I gave them the German or the European standard for egg sizes. You have S for small, klein in German, large for groß, XL very groß, and they have to be, there's the grams, under 43 grams, or 73 and over, and then there are signs for ecological, for freeland, for free roaming, whatever they're called, or for the lowest. So these are all that, you can read the numbers. If you ever go and buy your eggs, I don't know what the English standard is or the British standard, it'll be similar. You can work out where the egg comes from, whether the hens roamed happily or whether they're stuck in a little cage, and when it was done and where it was done. In this case, DE is in Germany. It'll be probably be UK here. And again, that took a little longer because I had to find a perfect egg. I didn't want to draw it. It would have taken too long. But you find everything, as Toshi said. You Google for a couple of minutes, and you've got perfect, good egg shapes. Yes, and I do ride bicycles a lot, and I do own a lot of bicycles. I actually have more bikes than printing presses. That's worrying. They do take, I mean, the good thing about bikes, they roll. I mean, printing presses do not. They stay. They are 2 tons and more. This bike is 7 kilos. It's a carbon bike. I hate carbon bikes, but the thing, you do these projects and they give you a bike. So this bike is 8,000 euros. So I thought, okay, that's a lot of money for putting some graphics on a bike. And again, so I did the measuring thing. I measured everything on that bike, the saddle stem, the fork and everything else. And I put those, I measured them, and I had to measure 3 sizes of bikes. So there was quite a bit of artwork involved. And the artwork is light blue because some of you are old enough to remember that when we used to put numbers on artwork, we would do it in light blue because the camera wouldn't catch it. When we did repros, yeah, even you know it. So it's all light blue, in Dayglow light blue, and they just put it on everyone on the bike, so there. And the angle of the angle of the diagonal to the straight, and I even had to put my sign the bike at the bottom, and I got a bike for it, which weighs 7 kilos and has, I don't know how many gears, incredibly cool. And then I have some friends at the university that are doing research into 3D printing steel bicycles. So all the round parts are 3D printed and baked. And as you can see, there's a stem missing. There's no connection between the saddle and the crank, which at first you think, oh my God, this is going to fall apart. But it's actually quite springy. So again, I thought, I turn the weird thing into a feature by putting color on the one that's missing, and I'm going to call the names for these things. And this one is in German, so they're called like Oberrohr and Unterrohr, the upper tube and the lower tube. So that was that one, and people like taking photographs in my workshop apparently, because it looks sort of kind of industrial and cool. But it's gone now. Yeah, so. People think it's me, but I would never wear white shoes or white socks. Ugh. But that's the bike. Anyway, so it's you know, the idea is there immediately. And what's specific about a bike? You know, it's just measurements. Everybody has their 5 different frame sizes and all the rest of it. If anybody ever had a bike made to measure, you know what difference it makes when they make it to your actual measurements. So that was the method. They're my methods. Saying yes to things that take less than 2 hours. Don't talk about money because it's not worth it. If you work 2 hours, by the time you've written an invoice and all the rest, you buy text on it, forget it. Just get them to buy you a drink or something, or reciprocate, and then people will turn up and bring me a printing press, which happened to me. I have a printing press for you. Thank you very much. I know this is an old hat that we arranged, but you'd be surprised how much you can achieve by just putting one letter or one word somewhere on the page, not in the middle and not just somewhere, and that's the message. If it's top right, left or bottom right, because we read from top left to bottom right, so putting something in bottom right means there's something else happening. Top left, not necessarily. In the middle, it's in the middle. It's finished. It's done. So those things are obvious, and I'm sure you all learn. I never studied design, so I wouldn't know. You all learn those at college. I shouldn't have said that, huh? Should I? I'm sorry, I've been teaching forever and ever, but I never studied, not design, I didn't. The final thought, but I learned about this, work is a gas, it fills any given volume. If you have a day, you take a day or 2. If you have an hour, you take an hour. If you have a week, you do it on the last day of the week. So it takes 7 days while you're fretting and frowning and, oh my God, I've got to do this, and you do everything else. You wash the car, you do the ironing, you do the laundry, and you mend your bicycle and stuff. You think, oh, fuck, it's Saturday, I've got to finish by Monday morning. So it takes a day, but you spend a week worrying about it. So just do it in 2 hours anyway. Then you're done in 2 hours, right? Self-imposed deadlines are the only ones that work for me. I said, okay, I'll have a cup of tea, and I'll have another cup of tea, and I'll do the job in between, okay? And that's it. Work is a gas, it fills any given volume. Everybody who runs a company here knows this. If you tell people, oh, don't worry about it, we only deliver this in 6 weeks' time, they're doing anything but the job. And then 5 weeks, oh shit, there's this project. Can we get some more people in here? And more people doesn't make it better, it just makes it more. You cannot have more than 7 people on the project, by the way. This is another lecture, sorry. But just try this at home. Take 7 coins, or whatever, or matches. chuck them on the table and ask people how many are there. They say 7. Take 8 or 9, to start making groups of 2s or 4s or whatever. That's proven perception psychology. So in other words, you have more than 7 people in a group, one of them has to go on and make the tea or whatever. They're redundant. You start having hierarchies. You start having subgroups. Never put more than 7 people on a job. Okay? Everything else just costs more money and takes more time. And that's it for tonight. Thank you very much.